Welcome back to Fort Lauderdale on Ice. Adam Daniel Mezei is my name. Your PMD, producer of marketing and distribution, pmdforhire.com. Thanks again for watching. So, I was thinking yesterday about how back in the day, at least, in the day before the internet, newspapers used to be very important, and I was a big reader of the sports section. I remember one of the newspapers here in Toronto when I was growing up was really chock full of this sort of fantasy baseball league stuff where at the beginning of each baseball season, which was probably sometime around March, what you do is you would pick from a list of pre-approved players that the newspaper's editors or the sports team or the sports news writing team, that is, would put together a list of fantasy players that had some pretty good stats, and they would give you like a list of something like, 65 or 70 players that you could choose from. The idea was you were supposed to choose a team of 9 guys and I think like maybe an extra player that would tally their stats over the course of the entire baseball season, probably home runs, RBIs, runs, and there was probably one other stat. And then whoever had the most number of points won, and I think whoever had the most number of points in any one category would win like a secondary prize. But it was kind of fun because you had a chance, as the squirrel bites a nut right next to me here, you had a chance to basically use your acumen as a sports fan and as a baseball aficionado, and you would go through it and you'd basically try to beat everybody else, that would submit. And usually, because the newspaper was citywide, so you'd get several thousand submissions, maybe even hundreds of thousands of submissions, and you'd basically be competing against a bunch of different guys. And I thought it was a really cool thing. But anyway, I didn't want to talk about baseball more than I wanted to talk about, let's say, your independent filmmaking all-star team. Like, who would your independent all-star team consist of? Who would be your indie director? Who would be your indie producer? Who would be your indie script supervisor? Who would be your indie cinematographer? I mean, I know it's calling people out and kind of pointing at them and saying, yeah, you're the guy, you're great, you're the woman, you're fantastic. But basically, I think that would be a really interesting exercise. Try to select who you would consider to be your top indie, cast of 5. I mean, it's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody because some people are doing different kinds of genre pictures. So some casts are ensemble and huge, and some casts are Spartan and take place in a small 4-walled room. It's only 5 people in the entire cast, sometimes only 2. But anyway, I was thinking about some of the major above-the-line positions. Who would be your best... Who would be your best production designer, for example? I know a lot of these roles in independent film are all lopped into one person. But definitely, who would be your best marketer? And who would be your independent film PMD? Just stuff like that, I think would be a really instructive blog post. And I think everybody should really prepare one, or at least I will prepare one, and I'll basically solicit opinions for whether or not people think that those are good choices and what their choices would be. An independent film all-star team. Really, if you could pick and choose from the number of different films that you saw throughout all of 2010 and before, who would you choose to be on your team and why? And list some of the reasons, the filmography, and the credits. That would make for a really awesome blog post. Honestly, I think that would make for one of the best blog posts around. Talk about being viral. And it just came to me the other day when I was just walking around and I just said, you know what? Yeah, I remember that fantasy baseball leagues. Fantasy leagues for independent film. Yeah, that would work out really well. What do you think? Do you think that's calling people out? Do you think that's being unfair? Or do you think that ups everybody's A game? So that's the thought of the day. Thanks again for watching, as always. From snowy Toronto, north of the 45th parallel of latitude, my name, Adam Daniel Mezei, wishing you the very best of things.